Hello and welcome to episode 99 of Driver Seat Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone. I have a bit of a fascination with lost media. You know what? No. I have a fascination with lost media that's been rediscovered. Like many people, I watched the infamous Wicked Witch of the West episode of Sesame Street, and I have to say, Margaret Hamilton's performance was amazing. Because this episode was produced in like 1975, and she was 73 at that time. And she puts on a great performance. If you find this episode and watch it. But it's been established that there are a lot of shows that were canceled after their first episode. There's a couple of shows that were canceled during their first episode. Now, one such example is Australia's Naughtiest Home Videos. Now, this was a special episode of Australia's Funniest Home Videos that was more on the adult-oriented videos that were watched that had maybe a bit more nudity and sexual and risque undertones. So it aired on 9 Network on September 3rd, 1992. You can track it down because it's somewhat easy to find, and I highly recommend that you watch it. And again, because there are adult themes, if you're not legally able to, then don't watch it. But how it got canceled was actually equally entertaining. So shortly after the broadcast started, all hell quickly broke loose. According to Wikipedia, the night it aired, quote, the night it aired, Kerry Packer, the owner of the 9 Network at the time, was informed of the show's content by friends while he was having dinner. He turned on to watch the show, which was being transmitted on TCN9, and was so offended by his comment that he phoned the studio operators and angrily shouted, "Get that shit off the air!" Within minutes, the program was pulled. Viewers saw a 9 Network bumper interrupt the program with the announcement that there being a technical problem before a rerun of the American sitcom Cheers filled the remaining airtime. When the show was canceled, this message was shown. We apologize for the interruption. Unfortunately, a technical problem prevents us from continuing our scheduled program for the moment. In the meantime, we bring you a brief alternative program. Now, this show was actually re-aired in 2008 with Bert Newton hosting because the original host wanted no part of it. And he summed up the situation very accurately with the following comment. Quote, instead they got the announcement of technical difficulties, which you heard, which was true. It is technically very difficult to keep a show on the air with the Mr. Packer on the phone yelling at you. Now, that one I said has been found, but this one was actually not found until earlier this year. The other major cancellation that took place during our first episode was Turn On, which aired on ABC on Wednesday, February 5th, 1969. I'm going to read Wikipedia's premise. I'm going to read the Wikipedia article premise on this because its premise was that it was the first quote-unquote computerized televised show, according to the opening sequence. The shows had no sex except for a clinical white backdrop. What is clinical white? Someone explain that one. I've heard that before. What does that mean? Where sketches were generated by an artificially intelligent computer would be acted out. Unlike the generally appealing humor of Laugh-In, Turn On was oriented around off-color humor and focused almost exclusively on sex as a comedic subject, using various rapid-fire jokes and risque sex. It's basically like Vine was, like 6 to 10 seconds of humor per skit. Now, co-creator and production executive Digby Wolf described it as a visual, comedic, sensory assault involving animation, videotape, stop-action film, electronic distortion, computer graphics, even people, quote. Sounds were created with Moog synthesizers that were used in lieu of a laugh stock, representing the computer's laughter. The program was also filmed instead of presented live or in videotape in a style of presentation that was novel for the time. Several sketches and jokes were presented with the screen being divided into 4 squares resembling comic strip panels, and the production credits of the episode were inserted into random intervals instead of conventionally at the beginning or end. Now, end quote. There were 2 completed episodes. The first one went to air and was so controversial, they got so many complaints that they yanked it off the air, and eventually the airing was pulled altogether by ABC. The second episode, which was completed, was never aired as such. Now, as I said before, earlier this year, both episodes found their way to YouTube, as these things tend to do. So I went and I watched both episodes. I wanted to see just this mystery, this enigma of a show that was so bad, even by 1969 when people were a lot more progressive than they were in the 50s, what was how this show was, and I was ready to enjoy it. It was described as controversial humor, and what I saw could easily be described as controversial. Now let's get to one issue with the premise. Supposedly this was programmed by a computer, but yet two men were operating the computer throughout the course of both episodes. The skits are very short, they are crude, they feature racial and sexist stereotypes. You want to know the one thing that both episodes lack? Humor. I watched both episodes multiple times, and at no point during either of those episodes did I laugh once. It wasn't that I didn't get the jokes, I got them all. They just weren't funny. The majority of jokes are predictable, to say the least, and even the jokes that where the punchline I didn't see coming, they weren't funny. They tried a number of things that had never been done before. I'll give them credit for that. But logically, there's a reason that they've never been done, because they don't work. They actually got sponsors who had commercials during the episode, and if you're expecting a joke or a skit, it actually just makes no sense as to why they're just advertising a real product. The credits throughout the episode thing, yeah, there's a reason it's never been done before or since, because it sucks and it's frustrating. And again, I said this, the commercials are also off-putting because they're forced. And especially when the skits are like 15 seconds long, like a minute-long ad is just like, what is this? And the longer skits drag on when you compare them to the length of the short segments. Now, there is one running gag where a cardboard character is pulled across the bottom of the screen carrying a sign that has something to do with the skit. None of these signs, or any of these jokes for that matter, are funny or insightful at all. Now, the longest skit, and by far the worst skit, yeah, this is bad even for this show, is called Sex. Because it lasts for 2 minutes and 13 seconds, and it features two floating heads, one man, one woman, under the word sex. The man wants sex, the woman resists until marriage. Once they are married, they float into the world sex, which changes color several times, and then the woman leaves, and the S leaves, turning into X. It's too long, it's predictable, and it's unfunny to the point it hurts. There's a lot of racial jokes and sexist jokes that are in there too, and they're unbearable. They're trying to go for the counterculture group, but they're spitting in the face of the exact audience they want to attract. One skit features the swearing in of the first African American justice to the Supreme Court, and the guy getting sworn in gets called a racial slur. That's the joke. But and they use a number of slurs during this whole thing, and it's not done funnily, it's done tastelessly. One of the more controversial ones that pissed off a lot of people was a woman walking up to a candy machine where you have an option for the pill. She tries to buy it, it doesn't vent it, she starts panicking and yanking the release lever. This show didn't sit well with anybody. And the fact that it made it to air is amazing enough, but ABC, of all networks, you don't have quality control? Seriously, who in ABC watched a fraction of the first episode and saying, we're going to put this on prime time? What the fuck? Oh yeah, and the use of Moog synthesizers for sound effects and music, it doesn't do them any favors. There is a running gag where a ballet dancer comes out and has various problems with the other dancers around him. The same music loop plays each time, and it gets more and more grating each time it airs. And there were a few things that were within radar range of being funny, but they've all been done 100 times before and 100 times better, and the ones that weren't were just awful. It's just awful. This show had no chance of success. It's transparently clear at this point. But they went with it anyway. Turn On isn't good. It wasn't good in 1969, and it's even worse today. It died a very quick death, and I think it should have stayed dead. And I can watch some of the stupidest, goofiest, most silly comedies ever. I can laugh with it. This one didn't laugh once. I even had a few laughs during Santa Inc. That's how bad this show is. Santa Inc. actually made me laugh more than Turn On did. And that's is considered to be the worst Christmas program ever made. So with that, episode 99 comes to an end. Next week for episode 100, I'm going to review the book Racing with Rich Energy. I'm Dave Fosling, you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.